G'day everyone, welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls. It's been a pretty epic time here in the hulls. You can see here I'm putting in some blocks here to be able to lock in my engine bay modules, and that's what this episode is going to be all about, is those engine bay modules. I'm going to be basically laminating the bearers and getting these modules ready and doing a lot of reinforcements so that they can facilitate my my engine install. Now I've already put the engines in, and right now here these bearers are all laminated, all ready to go, and essentially it's going to take a bit of fiddling to get those modules to fit. And I do get a lot of questions about why I'm using the modules. Firstly, environmentally, I want to be able to catch oil, coolant, or any sort of engine related fluids in a chamber, and that's basically like a bathtub underneath the motor where I'll be able to remove this stuff. And in fact, because it's painted nice and white and glossy, I'll be able to see where there's any inherent problems in the motors running going forward. But also they look very professional, and it's also by putting in the reinforcements such as I'm going to do further in the video here, you'll see that I'll be able to mount mufflers, water locks, strainers, fuel filters, anything I need to do, I can actually mount on the sides of these modules rather than just gluing a piece of plywood onto the side of the boat here like a lot of guys would do. Now, I did actually see an episode of Gone with the Winds, which is a couple that live on a leopard currently in Tonga at the moment, stuck over there with COVID, but they went to a factory in South Africa, and I'll just show you a photo of the access that they had in one of the boats that they had a look in, and it was an absolute beautiful. Admittedly, it was a 50-foot boat. That's the sort of access I'm aiming for. I won't quite have the space that's in this photo here, but certainly it will give me the opportunity to have a nicer engine room than I would do should I just flow coat it out and then just bolt some bits and pieces onto the side of the hull. Certainly more for presentation than anything, and more for hopefully ongoing maintenance is going to be a lot easier because I'm going to use these. So don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, and don't forget the composite shop zip over there. But lots in this issue. We're going to be all boat building on this one. Next week I'm going to take you sailing in the Whitsunday Islands. We had a brilliant trip, and it was a couple of months ago now, but wow, I'm still buzzing from it, still very, very excited. But for now, let's get down to this thing. Right, so we're going to mount these bearers. Now we've come to the conclusion I'm going to epoxy this whole face here, or pretty much I think I'll be epoxying the top of that. But I've come to the conclusion if I drill some holes, it'll act like rivets to hold this in place. And then once it's down, it's then going to be sheathed and laminated over the top. That'll be, probably put some off to the side, isn't it? I think the more holes I have, the better. It'll give it more bite. Don't you reckon?
Won't hurt.
Alright, so these little holes here are going to hopefully act as rivets, and we're going to put in enough of this. I'll clean the surface of the glass down there. I'm going to use quite a lot of this, aren't I? This technically is just brilliant, so I'll make sure all these holes are filled. That should give me more than enough bite, and then it's going to be glassed over as well, so I'm basically going to double hedge my bets by glassing over the top. Got to do, mate. This is a pivotal moment in the history of the mould. I've been preparing these for a long time. I've got plenty of epoxy on here. This is technically on this good old Aussie hardwood. So Aussie hardwood meets modern composites, and shipwrights always said to me if they had epoxies 100 years ago, John, they would have used it. So I've got
Is that the right side?
The inboard bearer here, yep. And the good thing is, because the modules here, I can actually line it up. Wow. Is that easy?
Nothing's easy, son.
All that work, and it was like a 2-second job. Jesus.
Don't ever say it's easy.
I might actually bog some in there, but that's down. Got a bit of squeeze out. I'm not convinced it's down.
Well, can you get up underneath there and have a look?
No, I can't get underneath that side, but that's okay. What I'll do is I'll put some more in once I lift the module out. Just need to make sure it's in place. There's plenty of epoxy here, and I'm going to leave this one, put some weights on and leave it here for 24 hours. Pretty easy, eh? That was easy. Strike. I'm just going to get that out of the way, make sure it doesn't...
You're building a boat and you say it's easy.
Yeah, it is easy. I find this easy. It's the filming the thing is the hard part.
Well, if it's that easy, why isn't every bastard and his dog building a boat?
You got to have a dream, John. And you got to have nightmares. And the only way to get ahead of it is to put the nightmares after the dreams. I have a lot of sleepless nights over this thing, as you can imagine. Right, so let's just check the final alignment here with my template. Stick the template on, make sure I've got my alignment. Yeah, that's pretty good. I reckon that's perfect. Very good. Inboard. Good job we marked them, eh? Alright. It's that easy. Job gets done quickly when you've got a second pair of hands. These heavy buggers, aren't they, mate? Your
Hardwood, oh yeah.
Your hardwood, rock heavy.
That's pre-war and it's still in good condition.
We got 100-year-old hardwood.
Easy.
So what we'll be doing, we'll be drilling into here to mount the engine bearers, but we're going to drill it and then epoxy it. So
No rotting.
no rot.
Oh, you can't put your template on
I
there.
can sort of get the rough. I've got plenty of room for error. The actual engine placement's going to be totally different. Yeah, it's perfect. Alright, that's good.
Want to put two on there?
No, the thing with the technical is you don't need a lot of clamping force.
The glue does the job.
Yeah. Pretty much does the job. The green bit behind, so you're going to have to pick it up from the back. Right.
Yeah.
So Janet's come up to help me lift these modules out. I've got the engine bearers glued in today, so they're epoxied in and they're just set. I just checked them a moment ago. And Janet's out walking the dog and got roped into lifting modules, so that's part of life on the holes, isn't it, Darren? Isn't it? She's not happy. Our dog,
All right, the dog won't be happy.
Lexi, thinks she's getting a bit ripped off because she's got a short walk today. We only live about 1.5 km from here, so yeah, interesting. Anyway, we're going to try to lift this out with the engine bearers. Those wooden parts are in place, Darren, so basically as we lift it straight up.
Yeah, but do they come up with it? Or are they stay there?
I'm hoping I can.
Do they
What was
lift
this? We're going to lift it straight up. No, hang on. Can you lift it up? Like lift it. Push it to me. Oh, shit. I'm gonna have to trim the fiberglass. Look, I'm just going to break these. Try not to. Give me a hand. I want you to walk on there.
I'm not going to.
Give me a hand. So little. Well, that was a fail over there. We couldn't get it out. I'm going to give this one a go. Hang on, hang on.
I'm just trying to get my hands in.
I'm trying to get on. Try. Righto, good. Don't drop it. Right. Just hold it there. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Janet can't believe the amount of crap I go through to film this.
And I'm not even getting on the film.
No, you don't even get into it. Looks like I'm doing it all myself. But how can I do it without Janet? Thank you, Darren. That's perfect. Right, at least I can work on one. Right, can you bring that bit of wood up? Well, the idea is I've got to reinforce these engine bearers, or these bays. So I'm going to put that in there, and then I know that the width's right. Thank you, Janet. So that one there was a fail. So So it's stuck. I've got to get in and cut a bit around that one to make sure I can get it out, and then I won't be able to get it out on my own, but at least I can get this one done, essentially reinforced up. You can see down in here, I've now got my bearers locked in, glued down, and ready for glassing. So we got this out last night, and this one here is still sitting in the well there. I've got to do a little bit of trimming to get it out. Now I've put those engine bearers, the actual timber bearers, they're epoxied in. I found that they're a little bit tight, so I've had to do a little bit of cutting on the other one over there to physically manoeuvre it out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically put this spacer in here to make sure that this doesn't close up, and then I'm going to roll it over and I'm going to start to work out where the reinforcement's going to be on the engine module for all of the strength, but also, and it doesn't need a lot of strength because the weight of the engine's actually being carried by the bearers, but what it does need is it needs a lot of reinforcement underneath and around the area, around the outside, to contain hoses, strainers, and electrical wiring, etc. So I'm going to put in some reinforcement and some plywood backings so that I can screw into it. That ain't just fit. That's got millimetres on either side, but at least it'll give me at the right height that I can work on it. Righto, so I've got to put a couple of mounts in here. Now this is going to hold the water lock and the muffler. It needs to be marine ply because I need to be able to screw directly into it. They're only going to be short screws because I'm only going to put 12mm marine ply on this area here. Then I'm going to sheathe it, encase it in fiberglass again, so it'll be epoxied down, and then I'll bevel it so that I can glass it down nice and neat. And also here, this area here will hold my strainers and my fuel filters. So I need to, now remembering it's upside down, so I need to have all the mounts up high so that there's room for the hose connections underneath, like in the photo I'm putting in here. So here I'm basically just going to put it, make this 150. Now I need to be aware that this here is the hole side, so I can't come too high. So I think if I come to about 150 off the base, and then probably about, I don't know, 2 centimetres off the floor. That actually gives me room to be able to laminate over the top and over again. So once again, I'll bevel it at 45 degrees on my bevel saw and make that part there. Being able to use some of the previously sheathed marine ply actually speeds up the process a lot, and mitering the edges of it allows for a perfect lamination. There's no air bubbles as you wrap and sheathe the remaining plywood with
with the laminate. Now there's a layer of 300, another layer of 600, another layer of 300 on there just to consolidate it down for these accessory mounts, and it makes a massive difference once you put them in, the strength of the module around that area as well. So it was a really, really good result, and basically I was then able to continue and finish that laminate pretty quickly. So the engine bearers are likely out of an old house frame, and they were once wall studs, I imagine, and fairly old stuff and simply not dressed, so they needed to have a rounded bullnose finish on them. I chose to use a small router bit, which gave me a perfect radius to make the lamination a lot easier and ensure I didn't get any air bubbles in it. I then applied a fillet down the back side of it and underneath as well, where it joined the foam bolster to make sure there was no chance of any air bubbles, and a perfect bond back to the bolsters and over the top of the bearer themselves.
So it's right about now that we experienced a microphone failure, and that hasn't happened to me before, but I forgot to charge a battery. It's that simple. But the engine bearers here, you actually see I'm actually doing them with another 4 layers of 600 double bias and tying them back into the foam pillars underneath of those bolsters that I have already laminated, and I did that last week. So they are going to be sheathed in fiberglass. Remembering it's Australian hardwood. I prepped the hardwood by giving it a light sand, and then I gave it a good wipe with acetone just to remove any sort of sap or oil that might have been there. Then we've laminated another 4 layers of 600 double bias over the top of them, and gradually tabbing them back down to the bolsters. So not only have I got the 6 layers of 600 double bias on the bolsters, we've now got 4 layers of double bias, 600 double bias on the actual bearer itself. Thereby, some of those areas of those bolsters now have nearly 10 layers of 600 double bias. So I think it's enough. It's certainly enough to hold the motors. I've had the motors in since then, and yeah, pretty impressed with that, with the way that they're fitting now. The actual surface of these laminated bearers is very important, because it's then going to be painted with epoxy paint, a corrosion resistance paint. In fact, it's going to be the same paint that I used inside the black water tank, because it has a high chemical resistance to things like diesel and oil, coolant, etc. So by using paint on top of this, once these modules are installed, I'm going to end up with a superior finish. It will be white, so I'll be able to see any sort of oil splatters that may be generated by the motor. So there's a lot to think about here, and I'm sorry my microphone failed when I did all the footage here. I was actually chatting away like I normally do. Got home, no audio, so this is an overdub of that section.